And we're back with more of the Shacknews Awards 2023. We are talking best art style of the year. This is a new video game release that had an amazing art style. That's all it needed to be qualified for this. This is not the best graphics category. Important to note, this is the best art style category. And here are the nominees: Baldur's Gate 3, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Pikmin 4, Lies of P, and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
All good
Where should
nominations.
we start? Yeah, I mean they're all excellent. Who would like to chat about the art style of Baldur's Gate 3?
Uh,
I mean, I actually didn't nominate it for this one, although I think Baldur's Gate is a pretty good art style. It's basically just, the world of Dungeons and Dragons, specifically like the region of like the Sword Coast. Obviously, the titular Baldur's Gate uh, plays a factor there, but it's got all the good fantasy fixins. You got your colorful armors and garbs and whatnot. I think the way that the game depicts like spells is very cool, and your hotbar, which is very MMO-esque, but it's the icons for the different spells are very easy to understand. The abilities and whatnot, I think that all would fall into art style, so it's a solid one.
very, very right out of they have the D&D books from Wizards of the Coast, like very similar to the same art style they have in those books, Donovan. I noticed like the way they draw the
That's
Teflings or the
cool.
Tieflings, however you want to say it, and the humans and the creatures, very, very one to one, which is good.
Yeah, I think this got nominated, maybe not because it's the most original art style, but because of how well they stuck to the source material, especially bringing that to like video game. I think is what's impressive. Let's go on to the next one. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This game is beautiful. It built on what we saw with Breath of the Wild, which, we sound like a broken record every year when Nintendo is mentioned in this category because they do more with less. And I think Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a perfect example of that. It's a game running on some very old hardware, but it's definitely one of the best looking games of the year. And boy, if you've played it in handheld on a Switch OLED, it is stunning. Uh, you
And,
know,
and it's on Switch, and it looks great. Just because the fact that it's on the Switch.
and it's running a 720p on a handheld. Like it's not like the highest fidelity assets or anything, but they're just well crafted. Uh, Tears of the Kingdom, I guess it adds a couple of things, but it kind of just builds on the same art style that we saw in Breath of the Wild in a lot of ways. I guess the sky islands are a little different. The way that it handles the transition from the sky to the ground that is a bit of a challenge on that hardware. So they use clouds, and there's a little bit of pop in there from here. You know, occasionally when you're dropping in on a place. But it definitely runs better than Breath of the Wild did. And I think that was a knock against Breath of the Wild's art style at times was that, it would pop in and it was jarring, or there were frame rate drops in the Lost Woods and stuff like that. I feel like they addressed a lot of those problems. And then they did the same thing that was done in Breath of the Wild where they used like occlusion to kind of hide some of
Mhm.
those things. I think that's one really impressive thing with how the game is designed. How a mountain can be put in the way of something, or a building, or a I don't know, a random thing that you can ascend. They do a good job of just crafting Hyrule so that maybe some of those limitations aren't super visible. But yeah, anyone else want to add to the Zelda discussion here?
Yeah, I think it looks great. Like it largely builds on Breath of the Wild's art direction, as it should,
Yeah.
right? It is the sequel, so I think in a lot of ways, like I've seen it before, but as you mentioned, I really like the transition, especially from. I did a drop really early on that was fun. I fired myself up to the Sky Zone and then like dived down into the overworld and right down in the depths, and just seeing
Yeah.
that transition was really cool. Just getting that, taking in that experience of all three regions was really fun, and it stuck with me.
I'm glad you brought up the depths because obviously the gameplay down there is divisive. But the decision to be in the dark, I think, is also divisive. I enjoy it because it
I
creates this. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to that, like, I feel like art direction must take in atmosphere, and the atmosphere of the depths is spot on for what that place is. Like, it's
Y-
darkness and corruption and rot.
Yeah, and it's also the contrast of light and dark, right? So,
Yeah,
like, when you get down to the depths for the first time, it's a scary place. You don't have the armor that you need to, avoid damage down there. You're probably low on hearts because it's early on in the game. So it's like the depths go from being this very spooky place to a playground by the end of the game. Because, as you unlock light roots, you unlock the light down there, and things become less scary. And you're also, by then, just through the way you progress in that game, you have more hearts, you have more stamina, you have more battery charge, you probably have some weapons that TJ was talking about in this different category where you beat a Gleeok and you fused it to a stick, and now you're a badass when you go down to the depths. So
that's the
I think,
thing.
yeah,
If this game were multiplayer and I were in the depths, I would just be hiding behind TJ the whole time and occasionally look over his shoulder, like, yeah, and then let TJ keep fighting.
yeah. But yeah, I would say that like the depths are a really good example of how visual presentation can represent player progression because like the light down there, what you unlock, and just things become easier without providing many spoilers. Things become easier down there, and I love that feeling. When you drop down into the depths, like right when I get underneath the ceiling of the depths, I activate my glider and I start looking around with my zoom because I'm like, where are these light routes? And then I start dropping pins on the map. I love the meta of finding light routes down there, and that going back to what I said, that contrast of light and dark. When you're like climbing up a cliff and you're like, I saw a light route this way, and you knew it when you were dropping in, but by the time you get to that place, you can't see it. You have to kind of go on your faith that you're like, yeah, I did see that. It is over there. And then once you get over that cliff or whatever, that rock wall, and like right as your eye line gets above that wall, it's just this orange glow. Like, it's a very rewarding feeling when you unlock a light route, and I think the art style has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one thing that's really different than Breath of the Wild. And then just like little things like the fashion in Hatino Village, or like you can dye your glider different colors. Like I think they gave us more optionality with some of the items in the game than you had in Breath of the Wild, so you can like have your own style a little bit more. Uh, but yeah, it builds on a lot of things that Breath of the Wild did. So I can see how it's less unique in 2023 than Breath of the Wild was in 2017. But that's no reason to. That's not a negative against this game in this category. It's definitely inspired by the first game in this. I don't know. It's not a trilogy. I think this is just it. This is all we got. These two games back to back. And now we're on to a new Zelda next time. Or maybe an Ocarina of Time remake. But I digress. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is our next nominee in this category. Steve, as the host of the Steve Tendo Show, I feel like I should go to you to discuss just how gorgeous this game is.
Oh, that game game basically looks fantastic. They pretty much modified the Mario formula to make it. I mean, they changed the character sprite design. They modified that to make Mario look a little smaller, a little younger. Not that he needed it, But they changed that. The Wonder Flowers, pretty much, Wonder Seeds, excuse me, changed pretty much everything in each level. Each level is based different theme design. One level you turn it into a spike ball, and or another level they change the perspective, or you walk on the wall instead of on the ceiling or on the ground. Another level you turn into a Goomba, and each world has different themings, and it looks fantastic. Color wise, it's so bright and colorful. Um, the music plays along with the graphical stylings because each level is different, and it just looks really nice.
I want to mention the overworld. It's the best looking overworld, I think, ever in a Mario game. And they do this thing where the backgrounds in the levels reflect the overworld that you're in. And I don't think that. I know that they've done that in the past. I don't think they've done it to the level of detail that we've seen in Wonder. And then on top of that, you have those levels where you can literally play in the foreground and the background that I don't think they had done that before. There's this old game, I want to say it was on the DS or 3DS era, called Mutant Muds. It really felt like they were inspired by Mutant Muds with how they designed that like background gameplay, foreground gameplay. Because that was a game that was a side scroller that kind of did it first. And it's a small indie team that made it. It just I love seeing stuff like that where it was like, hey, that looks like it was inspired by this. But then what they do with their art style to make those really cool. There's a foreground secret in the first level of the game, and a ton of people just gloss right by it because they don't stick around. You know, the inchworm pipe. A lot of people
Yeah.
just let that thing kind of go. But if you wait for it to place itself and you go down it, it's the first foreground secret in the game, and it's in the first level. I love that. And I love that it's like this sparkly pipe that like it's begging you to do something with it. But a lot of people are just kind of trucking and they ignore it the first time they're playing that level. I love that the game has so many things like that, and the art style elevates so many of those secrets. David, it seemed like you had something to say there.
Oh no, I this game is a reinvention of 2D Mario in so many ways, and it's just gorgeous. I even love, moving through the biomes. They've had different themes since Mario 3, right? But they're no longer, and they haven't been for a while, they're no longer discrete overworld maps. But just moving between them in this game feels like you're flowing from one extension of the art style to another, like same style, maybe different palette in a lot of cases, and just everything this game does. I mean, a lot of the clouds, like in the special world, the pinkish clouds just look like cotton candy to me, and it's just, I love the art style in this game.
If this was a game that you could somehow taste, it does look like it would be candy flavored, like all over the place.
I
I
feel
just want to
like
mention. Sorry, real quick. I want to mention the animations that when you get a power up in this game, you look like a damn anime character. Like the fireball animation, like the drill Mario, elephant Mario, Wowie Zowie, like all of those animations are very different than we had seen in the past. Like they gave them more attitude, and it looks awesome with every character. So the amount of work that went into that, I think, was pretty cool. It's a nice little detail. Sorry, go ahead, TJ.
I think that Nintendo's current art style in games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder was like, I feel like it was boosted by the era where they had like a lot of sort of clay looking games and papercraft looking games like Yoshi's Woolly World and the Link's Awakening remake, because you get that sense of everything looks like it could be a living toy in some of their in games like this, and I love that. I love the cloud world. I love the how fluffy everything looks and how it also like some of those clouds just look like ice cream. Uh,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
I also love the desert worlds and the water worlds, and just like we've talked ad nauseum about how Nintendo makes just beautiful, luscious looking water, and it's true here too.
Another thing I want to mention, and like I reviewed this game. I actually mentioned this in my review. The expressiveness of the enemies their eyes,
Yeah.
that they're looking at you and they get scared of you.
Like Elephant Mario charging toward them, and they're like,
yeah,
it's
like
great.
the Goombas were like, oh boy, or like
Yeah.
the flowers and their expressiveness. Like everything is so much more expressive in this game than any other 2D Mario. And they spent a lot of time on that with the enemies. When you're racing a Wiggler, like you just feel it. Everything feels more alive than I think ever before in a Mario game, and it's beautiful. The Bowser levels have some of the best art I've ever seen in a Mario game. Yeah, it's an outstanding art
Yeah.
style. Sorry, go ahead, TJ.
I said it in another topic, but when you shoot the bubble at an enemy and they see it coming, they're like, "No, no, no!"
Yeah.
So, like they have like a horrified look of seeing what their impending demise coming at them.
So it's like a combination of really new, innovative gameplay and art style that reflects it extremely well. That gives it this very new feeling. Yeah, it's just funny that this made the new Super Mario Bros. Games feel old. Sorry, go ahead, Donovan.
I also wanted to mention, speaking of the like things the creatures in Super Mario Brothers Wonder do, like the Koopas now, when they like walk into each other, they'll do like a little hip bump
Yeah,
and like start walking the other way. I think Goombas have something else they do instead of just like walking into each other like robots and going the other direction.
yeah.
Very cute.
I think yeah. There's that little hip bump, and they're like, yeah, it's like they're dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, it's awesome. I also love that they just were like, screw it, Flower Kingdom, deal with it. Like when you do something like that, you could just make whatever you want, right? And I love seeing that Nintendo just being like, yeah, new world, new royalty, new powers. Here's some badges. Have a good time. But yeah, I think I mentioned it in my review. Obviously, I gave it a 10 out of 10. They took risks in this game, and I would say every risk they took was awesome. It ended up being a win for them, and the art style is one of those. Changing what Mario looks like, changing what Luigi looks like, changing how they sounded. Obviously, a different category, but like all of that comes together, and in a very, very good game. So yeah, a worthy nominee. Oh, yeah, go for it.
I love the visual language of the game, like how the elephant power up kind of like waddles towards you. I love that like you have to squeeze into pipes. Or every now and then when you forget your hat, you'll see like your
the
hand reach
Indiana
up,
Jones
snatch it.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but then also just like I think just the visual language, the iconography just clearly communicates everything. Even the badges, the spring from the sound kind of syncs right with the visual style, and everything's just communicated so well visually.
And like the level design uses art style in a way that, like I go back to this, but I think Jump 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 is like the best Mario level I've seen in a really long time. And the way that they use the way that the art interacts with the music in certain levels, I think is really special. We kind of glossed over it, but the Wonder Flower mechanic, like the art in the Wonder scenes, outstanding. Like when you're a big old ball and you're flying through space, or there's just so many different moments where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now in a Mario game. And a large part of why it feels so special is the art style in those moments. But yeah, I think we've sung enough of Nintendo's praises for that game, because there's a third Nintendo game in this category. Because of course there is, Pikmin 4. This game is it's stunning. It's actually stunning for a Nintendo Switch title. TJ, you had the opportunity to review it for Shacknews. Can you tell the folks at home a little bit about how beautiful the art style is in this?
This game takes advantage of that exact thing I talked about before, like where everything looks like luscious, looks sort of almost a little plasticky, like toys in motion. And for a game where everything that you interact with and fight and use is like an alien thing, it's very easily readable, just what everything is, what it does, how it interacts with the world. Everything is pretty adorable. Oachi was my pick in the pet category just because Oachi is your best pal, but he's also adorable as all hell. Every morning, every day that starts, Oachi runs around you in a circle, just happy that you're around, and uh, and then just like the biomes, like they're massive biomes of just like these areas. They're just like backyard gardens or little sand pits or just like, and then the dungeons are kind of like foreboding and scary sometimes because like you're traveling through tunnels and then you'll run into like these weird like metal like contraptions underneath all of it and like strange worlds and alien creatures that are just like sometimes pretty terrifying. I think that like the sheer amount of variety in Pikmin 4 as far as the visuals, and I know that a lot of stuff is returned from previous games, but just like the sheer cleanness of all of the art in the game, as well as just like how easy it is to recognize all of it and enjoy all of it, or be frightened by some of it, it's really quite an incredible visual cornucopia to me.
Yeah, and I love the random items that you find in it. They're like they're just lovely Easter eggs in that game, and
Yeah,
they're like a celebration of Nintendo and just quirky things, and that game is so weird.
you send
But
all
yeah,
your little
like,
guys in Iwachi to dig up a sand pit and not pops a Game Boy Advance SP.
mhm. Which is like literally my favorite Nintendo thing ever. So when I saw that, I'm like, how is this not my game of the year? And somehow it wasn't, but that's the year that we've had. Yeah, if anyone else wants to chime in, they can, but we should probably move on to the next nominee. But a very good one, and three very unique Nintendo games right there that have different art direction, but all of them kind of show you how their philosophy can really compete despite the technical limitations of their hardware, right? Uh, I always find it amazing how small Nintendo games are in this era of 100 gigabyte games. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, 3.5 gigs. That's it. And I know, like, asset sizes, they're not making 4K images or whatever, but, like, still, it's only 3.5 gigs.
The thing is, very early on, you can contrast the size of Switch games with ports very easily
Yeah.
because a lot of Wii U games are sometimes 2 or 3, even 4 times the size of a native Switch game. You
Mhm.
know,
We don't like to talk about Wii U.
I love the Wii U, but it was what it was. You know,
Nah, but you're right. It was the GOAT. It has Virtual Console on it, but I digress
Yep.
again. Our next nominee, they made a Souls game in the Pinocchio universe, and it worked. Lies of P. What a unique game in this year. It's not easy to make a game that sticks out in 2023, and Lies of P does. Lies of P, I can see a screenshot of that game and know, yep, that's what that game is. And it's not that it's running on the newest Unreal Engine either. I believe it's running on UE4, which is pretty impressive. That you can still do what you do with Lies of P. TJ, you reviewed this, right?
Yeah. One of the things I was like constantly in awe of when I was doing this game was just like the weather effects that you see throughout the game. There's a part where you're wandering on a cliffside through town on your way to like a giant hotel on another cliff in the distance. And like that moment, seeing the rain sweeping around you and like the lightning as it in the clouds behind the hotel, it's a pretty cool little vista to take a look at. And then there's just like the sheer amount of like detail in the. I think this game is probably one of my favorites when it comes to environments this year. Just the sheer amount of like area design, the way they made it all look beautiful as you're traveling through it, the way it's all like torn up and everything, because obviously the puppets went on a killing spree and every year like one of the only ones left. And so just like this kind of dead city that was like in mid strides, everything was still operating when it happened,
Hmm.
is a really kind of stark contrast. It's really fun to see and really fun to travel through.
I have a question about Pinocchio's nose. Does it grow in this game from lying? Did they use that mechanic ever?
They don't make his nose grow, unfortunately.
Pre-order canceled. That's
Well, he doesn't even talk, right?
You have conversation choices throughout the game, and one of the biggest things of it is that you can choose to lie to people when they ask you questions, because
See,
Pinocchio is like the only robot that can lie.
yeah.
it would have been awesome if your nose ended up being your main weapon, because I just want to parry with my nose
Yeah, right.
and then like boom, like stab. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not alone in thinking that could have
No.
been a mechanic. Okay.
The
So I'm
weapons
They're
in
gonna-
this
making a
game,
sequel, so there's room for this stuff.
I'm gonna have to deduct 2 points from Lies of P for not having the nose grow.
the weapons in this game though are also very cool in their design. Like you start out with simple things like a rapier or a saber or like a longsword, but as I've mentioned in other things and the review, like you take the blades off of weapons and attach them to different handles and make your own weapons. And so the stuff that you come up with and and the way that it looks is also pretty cool. And then there's Pinocchio's left arm is a weapon itself and can be swapped with different arms that all have a different aesthetic to them. Like you start out with one that is like a scorpion harpoon where you shoot it at somebody and yank them towards you. But you also get stuff like a flamethrower, a straight up like cannon, a mine launcher, and they all have like a very different look to them. But they're still attached to Pinocchio, and it just like the way they like kind of he's got this bristling machinery on his arm, and he's just like this dapper looking boy. Is kind of fun.
I have to say also it's kind of cool that like there are a lot of Souls likes that that's a genre now. But I think TJ would probably know better than I would, because he gets to play a lot more games every year. But I think this is the first distinctly Bloodborne like that we've got, because I think it's much more evocative of Bloodborne than the Dark Souls games. Would you agree with that, TJ?
Yes, I would agree with that wholeheartedly, and I think Denny would as well. Like Denny has been on the Bloodborne train forever and really wants that remake to happen. But like
And Sam.
this
And
game
Sam.
was like cathartic for him, where it's like, if I can't have Bloodborne, I at least have this.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
And I know, David, you may not like some of the mechanics of Bloodborne, but the art style of Bloodborne was very unique.
I love the world, like
Mhm.
like Gothic horror, Lovecraftian horror really
Yeah.
resonates with me. Like Bloodborne did that better than any game I've played thus far, and actually, Lies of P is one of my winter break games. I cannot wait to dive in.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, a very worthy nominee for this category, and kind of sticks out relative to some of the
Yeah.
other games in this category. But yeah, shout out to the devs over at Lies of P and the people who helped design it to make it so unique this year. Because yeah, it stuck out, and sticking out in 2023 as a video game was not easy. This next nominee does that in spades. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This is the spiritual successor to the Jet Set Radio franchise. It does add a little bit of, other things. You're not just inline skating in this. You do have a skateboard at times, which is interesting. But yeah, it's a game about grinding on rails and tagging things and putting together combos and dancing. It's art is a large part of this. Graffiti has its own vibe, and the Bomb Rush has its own vibe with how the tags look and how that informs the design of the rest of the game. The characters are pretty cool looking. There's like the ability to like boost in this game, like all the colors that they've chosen for the sparks on the rails when you're grinding, or the boost coming out of your backpack. All that stuff is cool. This game is definitely evocative of the Dreamcast era. So it kind of stays true to the art style of the Jet Set franchise in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it can do things on a larger scale than any of the previous. I shouldn't say previous games. The original or the games that inspired this game. So I do think that it does take some liberty with design, and the art style definitely enhances that. The other thing I'll say is that the music and the game are almost one and the same. The world kind of goes to the beat of whatever whatever level you're playing has like a song, and it was very much crafted. The song and the levels were crafted to kind of interact perfectly, and the art style kind of elevates that a lot. It's a unique looking game. I won't say it's the best art style that I saw this year, but like relative to a lot of other games, once again, it stuck out. And I highly recommend it. It's a cool indie game, for sure. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in about it, but yeah, I dug it. If not, I think we should probably vote. What do you say? Okay, David, I'll start with you.
Did we skip Disney
Oh
Illusion
boy.
Island?
Oh,
we did.
Wait.
I think
It wasn't nominated. Out of order.
Oh, it wasn't nominated. Oh, okay.
Wasn't
I
nominated.
saw it
it
written
got 2
in.
nominations, Ozzy and me. Oh, okay. Interesting.
It did not.
Didn't.
I don't know what you're looking at. And in fact, you're out of order, Greg. Get out of here. Get out of here with your Mr. Mouse
I've got the nominations
propaganda.
page open. I don't see it. Although I was also surprised to see its omission, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Well,
There were,
Wait,
there were a lot of games.
wait a second. Wait a second. Illusion Island. Is it still in early access?
No,
It's not? It released this month, didn't it?
you're
Ozzy and I
thinking of
both
Dreamlight
nominated
Valley.
I always sorry, Disney's actually making games again, and I'm starting to confuse all of them.
Okay.
that's
This is So wait, which Illusion Island, this is the one that was on
platformer.
Switch?
Platformer on Switch.
Yeah, it was
The Mickey
exclusively
platformer on Switch. Okay, so it came out this year. It just
we
didn't
had
make
a
the
lot
cut.
of great art games with great art styles that didn't make the nomination cut. I mean, I would have argued for Street Fighter 6 too with the graffiti art style, but
I was surprised. Yeah, I was
this
surprised.
is a great year for games with distinctive art styles.
I have to say, how did Pikmin 4 slip by everyone? How did that get in here?
Well, it only
You're
has
the
one
judge, you
nomination.
tell
That's the thing
me.
I'm confused about, and that got in. But Disney Illusion Island had 2, so I'm confused on why that's why Pikmin 4
Well,
got.
we held a meeting where we determined the nomination.
Yeah, we
I was gonna
determined.
say, like, I feel like it's a little
Yeah.
late in the game to bring this up.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It
thought
is.
was-
That's
thought it
why I
was just
put Greg
however
out of
many, if there were
order.
more in the votes. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the panel determined that these were the 6 games, Greg.
Strike this
Despite
from
your
the record.
love, despite your blatant love of Disney, Greg. I know you love Disney so much that you just wanted to give them an award here.
I just love 2D animation, just period. Like, I mean, if you're doing pencil.
No,
tests in
you
the
just
game,
love Star Wars and Mickey and all those things.
Star Wars.
I know that about you. You're just a huge
Greg does love
Disney
Disney.
fan. That's what
Mickey
this
Star
is
Wars.
about. That's what this is about. You're always cosplaying as Disney characters. Like, yeah, you're just
If
a
there's a-
Disney fan. And I'm not
there's
going to
anything-
allow you to shove this Disney art agenda in here at the last second.
Yeah, we got Austin off on a rant.
Greg totally loves Disney.
Greg's
though,
been
obviously.
outed as a Disney fan.
If there's anything I
One of
know
the worst
about
things that
Greg,
happened to
it's
you.
his undying love for MCU movies after
And Star Wars.
Endgame.
Yeah, TJ.
And
Star Wars
Star
and MCU.
Wars.
That's all I'm about. Yeah.
That's Star Wars. I'm sorry.
got to the bottom
We
of
have
that.
derailed this entire conversation. And it's my fault, and I don't care. Anyway, we're having fun here. David, let's vote.
Let me derail it just a little longer. Just a shout out to Octopath Traveler 2. That game's art style really grabbed me.
Oh.
But I feel like for me, yes, for me this is tough because it's coming down to Pikmin 4, which I don't feel has gotten a lot of enough love, and Lies of P, which also hasn't gotten a lot of love. But I think that, like, for as much as Asif said, didn't really like a lot of the direction of Bloodborne, the art style was never an issue. So I'll go with Lies of P for this one.
Nice. Donovan.
I'm gonna go with Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I think the art style does more for that game than art style does for a lot of games. So Mario
And it was drastic change, like changing your iconic character.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
risk. Greg,
I'm gonna go with Wonder.
DJ.
Mm, I'm joining the Lies of P camp on this one because the more I thought about the traveling through that world, the more I remembered just how awesome it was at nearly every point.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a screenshot of that game where I'm like, oh, that looks okay. I'm like, wow, it looks
Mhm.
really good.
Just gorgeous.
Yeah. Ozzy.
I'm gonna go with Liza P. That's such a drastic reimagining of that world and of that
Mhm.
license, and it's creative. I absolutely loved it. So I'm gonna go with Liza P.
Nice. Steve.
I'm going Mario Wonder, but I want to. Pikmin 4 looks gorgeous too.
Yeah. I have some absentee ballots here. Sam voted for Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Sam is the patron saint of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk at this point at the Shacknews Awards. And Bill voted for Lies of P. Let me see if I have any other ones that I can count before I add mine.
Did Denny have a vote?
I think he might. I
I
don't
could see him
see it.
voting for Liza P. but
I
I'm not
think he
sure.
would too, actually.
Bill did.
Bill did vote for Lies of P. I can make things difficult, or I could just vote for Lies of P. Or I could vote for another game that I like the art style of. I think Lies of P kind of deserves this award. It hasn't been nominated in many categories, and to everyone's point, it's kind of similar to Wonder, right? Like Wonder took a beloved IP and redesigned it in a way. Lies of P
Yes.
took a beloved IP that I think Disney used to have the copyright on, and
Well, it's in the public domain.
yeah,
Now, I believe.
yeah. So we're starting to see this, right? I know that there's like Winnie the Pooh things that are coming out that are not
Oh
kid
yeah,
friendly.
that like horror movie.
Yeah. So I like that Lies of P did what it did. So I'm gonna vote for Lies of P here. Mainly because it's just hard to choose between those three Nintendo games. I don't know which one. Like saying one of those is better than the other in art style, I'm like, I don't know. I think Pikmin 4 is stunning. I think Mario Wonder's amazing. And Tears of the Kingdom is one of those games where you just look at it and you're like, yep, that's Zelda. That's what Zelda looks like now.
I also think, like, in the spirit of this category, like we've given a lot of love to a lot of the heavy hitters this year, and they deserve it. But Lies of P, if any, like this is a category where some underdogs could really stand out because of how they look, right? I feel like that's Lies of P for this category.
And we mentioned them, but yeah, like Octopath Traveler 2 not making this is pretty rough. But yeah, there's a lot of great games that looked amazing this year. But Lies of P is going to stand above them all at the Shacknews Awards. That's our winner for Best Art Style of the Year 2023.
I hope this reaches you. This city is falling apart. Chaos, madness,